how cutting carbs can make you lose fat. It's probably not the way that you think it works. So that's what I'm talking about today, is carbs comes up a lot. Carbohydrates make you fat. Insulin hypothesis, you might have heard. Diabetes, it takes blood sugar levels, so people think carb sugar. And I just want to explain this a bit more because there's so much rubbish out there, mainly on the back end, and they go and sell you something a supplement that stabilizes your blood sugar levels or ketones or etc. So let's look at the carbohydrates in general, and the most common sense way, hey Melanie, that this is often explained, that seems quite believable, is what they call the insulin hypothesis, where they say you eat carbohydrates, that raises your blood sugar levels because the carbohydrates broken down, then glucose levels go a bit higher in your bloodstream. That means that insulin comes from your pancreas, release the hormone, which helps you store that sugar away into your muscles as energy. So the hypothesis comes from, okay, insulin is a storage hormone, so if you eat sugar, you have more insulin, you have more storage. Now, hey Joss, so then when I say that, you almost, even me saying it makes me think, oh, so surely less carbs means less storage, more fat loss. And that is one way of putting it, which sounds really like common sense, really useful, but it's actually far from the truth. You're almost missing the forest from the trees. Is that the one it is? Yeah, whichever way what that saying goes. And here's why, because this actually depends on how many calories you eat overall. For example, your body is storing fat, storing just energy, storing and using it all day. Whether you're in a calorie deficit, which means you'll lose body fat, or a calorie surplus, which means you'll gain body fat, your body actually goes through storage periods and burning periods throughout the day. If you have more burning periods, you'll probably lose fat. If you have more storage periods, you'll gain fat. If this was just as simple as being dependent on one hormone in there, it would mean that basically Japan, Asia, where they have real high white rice intake, for example, which is demonized, they would have the biggest obesity problems anywhere. Yet, if you think about it, over here we're potentially demonizing white rice, demonizing carbs more, and we have bigger problems. Now, that's not to say that cutting carbs doesn't work, because some people will eat a very high carbohydrate diet, palatable diet. But what often happens when people talk about research as well, with a high carbohydrate diet, or maybe they manipulate the terms and say it says processed foods and then people think high carb. It's often, if you look at all the processed foods, they're often high fat and high carb, high fat and high carb, and often quite low in protein. There's a missing thing here, the protein. So if you eat a high fat, high carb diet, highly palatable, easy to overeat, they often have long storage shelf life, they're moreish, they taste amazing from the mouthfeel, because the fat, mouthfeel, salt, sugar, dopamine hit, endorphins, feel great. So you've got all this working for you. So in essence, it's the carbs. So, but how can cutting your carbohydrates slightly actually help? Well, if you eat a very high carb diet, it might actually help you from eating a lower. Doesn't mean none, a lower. And here's where a lot of people could benefit, not everyone, is that by default you've got to put something in the tank. So if they then increase that and you eat more protein, you might feel fuller for longer, you might feel more satisfied. The result of that also is that you're still including some in there, so you have the flexibility to choose those options that you want, providing your overall intake is in check. And remember, that doesn't mean you have to count calories. It might just mean that you're more listening to your body in terms of, when I eat more protein, do I actually just feel fuller on eating more moderate portion sizes? And I can say, for me, if I eat more high carb, high fat foods, I'll generally eat more because I'm less satisfied at a meal. Whereas if you gave me quite a low calorie intake to hit, I could do that, but only if I manipulated the macronutrients in terms of fiber intake, protein intake, that keep me fuller for longer. Okay? And I just wanted to explain that. I hope that's making sense. Give me a comment below. Hey Bronya, hey Lisa, hey Sandra. Is that making sense in terms of protein intake, carbohydrate intake, where that comes in. Obviously, it's only a 5-minute video. But if you want me to put together more of a in-depth one on this, because I was actually thinking about doing this, and we did a Q&A quite recently about this, about how to manipulate your diet in terms of the great stuff, Sue. Awesome to hear. Good. About how different nutrients actually work inside your body, because it's very easy to look at something or just read a magazine and go, how the low carb diet changed my life. Should I go low fat? Should I go low carb? If you want me to put together a little training on that, just type in nutrition below and I'll break down what exactly actually happens when you eat fat, carbs and protein, and how this is dependent. These are all dependent on your overall energy intake. Yes, that'd be a great read. Perfect. Cool. I'll get onto that, because it's all dependent on your overall intake. For example, some people have diets where it's like some cultures, white rice intake is hugely high. Their insulin should be storing fat, but they're not. So anyway, I hope that helps. Have an awesome day. Enjoy the sun, and I'll see you soon. Take care.